Hi everyone and welcome to this presentation. It's such an honor to have my project presented in the International Virtual Conference on Education, Social Sciences and Technology 2021. My name is Abdullah Hadi and I'm a lecturer at the Islamic University, Najaf, Iraq, and the topic of the project is Victorian Orientalist Poetry, Origins and Meanings. Orientalism in the Victorian era has two controversial issues, namely meaning and origins. In terms of meanings, Orientalism means the underestimation of the Oriental world or actual representation of that world, or even ambivalent visions of the Orient. In relation to origins, the first origin is Europe's allure for and translation of the Arabian Nights. Second, the Romantics' visions of the Orient. Third, the depiction of the opium addiction. And finally, the rediscovery of the epic Gilgamesh. Said's Orientalism. There are many notes or overgeneralization in Said's Orientalism. For example, his statement that every European in what he could say about the Orient was consequently a racist and imperialist and almost totally ethnocentric. But this is inaccurate explanation of the Orientalist attitudes toward the Orient. There are some positive notes in Edward Said's Orientalism. The first note is that the distance between the Orient and the Orientalists or Occident was reduced in the Victorian age. The second one is the variant ties of Occidental representation are based on textual attitude. What is textual attitude? Textual attitude is an unknown situation in which books or text can provide the readers with clue or knowledge about the real lives of human beings. But there is a constant danger of falling into superficial conclusions. Origins of Orientalism in the Victorian period. Orientalism can be traced back to ancient Greece, Renaissance, or even Napoleon's conquest of Egypt in 1789. However, there are four origins that were combined to construct Orientalism in the Victorian period, namely the Arabian Nights, the Romantics representation of the Orient, and the depiction of the Opium Obsession, and the rediscovery of the epic of Gilgamesh. The Arabian Nights. A European fascination with the Arabian Nights is part of the origin of Orientalism in the Victorian age. For example, we have Antoine Galland, the French guy, who translated the work into French in the early 18th century. And also we have many British Orientalists who translated the work into English. The Arabian Nights is valuable source for the European understanding of the Oriental world of Iraq, Egypt, Syria, Persia, and Africans. For example, in Dickens' writings, we have many Victorian Orientalist texts. Importantly, in his ironic and satirical references to the Arabian Nights, Dickens' narratives reveal a notable association with the Arabian Nights. The main character of David Copperfield announces that the Arabian Nights remarkably kept alive his fancy, and he hopes to avoid imperialist universe. The second origin is the Romantics' visions of the Orient. The importance of the Arabian Nights is enriched by romantic works like Byron's works. But Byron's works are studied mostly for the Byronic hero. However, they are full of references to Islam. Other Romantic writers also use Eastern settings in their works. Such writers are Coleridge in his Copper Khan and Shelley in his The Revolt of Islam. The third origin of Orientalism in the period is the depiction of opium obsession or addiction. De Quincey's Confessions in 1821 took great role in developing Victorian Orientalism. The work represents the danger of Eastern societies and cultures. Malay, the main character, represented as an Oriental figure, is portrayed as in downward scale to body organs and reduced as being used to opium. Dickens' use of the opium obsession and trade is for the purpose of satirical points. The fourth origin, the rediscovery of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh actually is the earliest universal coherent masterpiece of literature. The rediscovery of Gilgamesh in 1872 by the pioneering English essayist John Smith uh, represents a very important event in the Victorian thinkings. The Old Testament, that the Victorian people believe that their origin is in the Old Testament and also in Greek philosophers. But there are some stories that they found, for example, the story of the deluge or the universal flood that are found in the Genesis, which are considered as the origin of their lives. So, but the same these stories are also discovered in Gilgamesh, and Gilgamesh was written at least 2 millennia before the original Bible. So Gilgamesh began to represent a better form of historical evidence, and the idea that the discovery of Gilgamesh originated tension in beliefs about the past and present and future in the Victorian era, and also people became skeptic of Darwin's evolutionary theory. Moreover, there is a rich thematic relevance between Gilgamesh and the age of its rediscovery, mythology, story, and inevitability, immortality, and value of death in the age. Orientalist elements in Victorian poetry. Actually, Victorian Orientalist poetry is written chiefly by male poets. Orientalism is to be found in Tennyson, Fitzgerald, Browning, Arnold, Wilde, and Rossetti. These poets were indebted to the Orientalist writing by travelers to the east. Fitzgerald is known for the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, which is a primary text in the domain of Victorian poetry. The poem is a translation and a free adaptation of Omar Khayyam's work, Rubaiyat, and an attempt by Fitzgerald to combine East and West. Fitzgerald suggests that his translation should represent the Persian poetry as it is and not from a Western perspective. Fitzgerald's translation of Rubaiyat is a superior level of Orientalist writing as it is free-floatingly mythologized the Orient. In the work of Fitzgerald, the idea of lost Oriental courage or glory is portrayed through historical figures like Iran, who have gone with their beauty and courage, and the poet also gives greater emphasis to the present pleasures, and he emphasized that translation theory was to keep the Oriental text as Oriental as possible. Alfred Lortens, also another important poet. Tennyson's poetic writing demonstrates exoticism, imperialism, and social criticism. His two brothers and Timbuktu are full of the or references to lost past Oriental courage and glory, and also we have ambivalence sometimes, underestimation sometimes. Raising the importance of the Oriental world, and also we have some phrases and some positive phrases and negative phrases: brilliant tower, first city, low built, and barbarian settlements, and so on, and so on. But also we usually have references to glory and splendor. We have also his poem Passover calls for pastor and splendor, right, retiring with majesty and bright glory. His poem, Recollections of the Arabian Nights, also surprised the golden prime of great Harun Rashid of Baghdad. And also we have a departure from the Victorian England and a preference for the Orient, which is still deteriorated. And the speaker concludes by announcing that I seek a warmer sky and I will see before I die the palms and temples of the south. Matthew Arnold is also another important Orientalist poet um, who, uh, who was engaged or influenced by travel writings and Oriental scholarship and historiography, which determined his Orientalism. His Land of the East and Constantinople recalled Tennyson's Orientalist idea of a glory gone and palmy days of old. Um, we have also, for example, the poem Sohrab and Rostom concludes with the theme of lost glory, and Arnold's poetry in general, like that of Tennyson and Fitzgerald, presents the Orient in the lens of its past glory. Robert Browning is also an important poet who poses an unusual ambivalent Orientalism in his poetry. He is known for his dramatic monologues that contain wide and rich variety of European and non-European speakers. For example, in Loria and the Return of the Dresses to Poetic Dramas, uh, Browning's passions for the Arab and Persian scholarships is also very clear in these works. Luria is described as an utter alien, later an alien force, has neither past nor future. The two themes of warning and past glory are clear in Browning's ambivalent method in his poem. Oscar Wilde is also an important poet who is known for the Sphinx and his uses of the Sphinx and images about the supernatural and Oriental to demonstrate Said's explanation of Orientalism. Orientalism in the Sphinx can be found in the apostrophe directed to the Sphinx to wake in me each pastel sense and full dreams of sensual life and make my creed appearance sham and what I would not be. Dante Gabriel Rossetti is also an important poet who was engaged in Orientalism. Likewise, Dante Gabriel Rossetti portrayed the theme of Oriental exotic in his special way. The burden of Nineveh is a dramatization of the conflict between the exotic Oriental and Nineveh condition and Western empires. Rossetti links and identifies the expansion of British uh, colonialism with the adventures of Nineveh and Assyria, and neither of them will be immortal. Rossetti identifies the god of Nineveh with the god of 19th century. Conclusion. So Orientalism has various origins and meanings, constructing its deep ambiguity, leading to a certain ambivalence in Victorian writers' attitude to the Orient. The direct sources are the ambivalent reception of the Arabian Nights, romantic receptions of the Orient, and the portrayal of the Opium Obsession and the rediscovery of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Fitzgerald, Tennyson, Arnold, Browning, Wilde, and Rossetti use ambivalent Orientalism in their poems, recalling European misunderstanding of the Oriental text, epitomized in Said's sexual attitude. By using this research, one can continue to analyze and describe various modes of ambivalent and still ambiguous Orientalism in the Victorian period and literature through the lens of Victorian poets.